Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. I am Rachel Ann. I'm here with the lovely Mary Ann, and we are so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we look at the ways our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically so we can live our best lives. We're really excited that you're here with us on the journey.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 19 of the podcast.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much if you've been here with us since episode 1. If you're just
Yeah.
tuning in, either way, we're so excited to have you with us.
Yeah.
So, some good stuff today that we're going to talk about. Managing our different roles that we play in our daily lives, how to kind of tell what our priorities are. I think it's a good time. A lot of people are in the back to school mode. Whether you are back to school, you have kids that are back to school, even if you are neither of those things, the end of the summer kind of invigorates us, right, to like focus a little bit more sometimes. So I think it's a good time for this topic. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about this time. You're right. I actually talked about this in my newsletter, I think a week ago, where I was like, if you're not someone that likes New Year's resolutions, maybe you should try resolutions in September because there is just that natural feeling of, oh, this is when I'm like resetting. Summer has a natural feeling of like vacation, and then September has a natural feeling of like, okay, it's time to reset and like do something. So
yeah,
I love having this topic during this time. Perfect timing.
absolutely. Yeah. Before we dive in, though, we got to talk wellness wins. What do you got, Rachel Ann?
Yeah, girl. Okay. So if you are somebody that, if we're Instagram friends, you probably heard me talk about this because I think it's like the bee's knees. If you're on my newsletter, I've talked about this because I think it's a bee's knees and I have a coupon code. But I love giving people, I love when I discover something awesome and then I share it with others because I'm like, this is so great. I want everybody to like have a great experience too, which Marianne didn't, and I'm so sorry. But
I do love coupon codes, so share away. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll put it in the description below, as the influencers say. But I've been trying something called mushroom coffee. It's all over Instagram. It I don't know, the algorithm just really, really loves mushroom coffee right now. There's a few different brands. The one that I've been trying is called Rise, RYZE. And they have like a caffeine one that has like actual coffee in it. They have a matcha one that has like actual matcha in it, ceremonial grade. And then they also have like a caffeine free one. And the idea of it is like, it has a lot of mushrooms. It's a lot of science. You can Google it, but they help with your focus, your bloating, your sleep, your digestion, your inflammation, pain, your brain fog, like a lot of different things. And they basically combine that with coffee or with matcha or with like something else. And I've been very intrigued by this because I think I shared with this when we had Sandra come in, our nutritionist, was talking about caffeine, and I was like, I can't have caffeine. And decaf apparently has a lot of mold in it. So I was like, okay, let's like not have mold in my beverages. So long story short, I was like, I want something affordable. I want something that I can just make at home and doesn't have mold. Let me like try this mushroom thing. And it's been really, really cool. I've been liking the different flavors and combinations, and I've been like feeling, great improvement with my brain fog, great improvement with my focus, my energy, all of that stuff. So like that's been really cool. But for me, I think the specific wellness win is the creativity that I've been like allowing myself to do. So I'll be like today, I wasn't in the mood for like a beverage. Like I wasn't in the mood for it in a beverage way. I was in the mood for like something else. And I was like, okay, let me like put it in my oatmeal and see how it tastes. The other day I was having a boba drink. It was a taro slush. And I was like, ooh, let me see what the chicory caffeine-free one, how that tastes in combination with the taro. And it was delicious. And I was like, I love this so much. So I don't know. It's allowed me an opportunity to just be creative and like wonder, which has always been a goal for me. I think I spoke about a few years ago, the motto of the year was like dare to dream. I think I shared that here. And so I feel like I'm still doing that, and this reminds me of that. So it's been fun and healthy, which I enjoy. It's been really fun.
That's exciting. I am going to take some of the tips you gave me before we started recording so I can use up the rest of my bag because I do hate waste. But yeah, maybe it'll, turn things around for me. Yes, stay tuned.
Yeah.
But
If you're
I'm really
someone that's
glad.
tried it, right. If you're someone that's tried it and you're like, it tastes like crap, lots of people at first are like, this is weird. You just kind of have to like find your vibe with it. Hit me up. We'll talk. I have a
Yeah.
lot of great recipe ideas. I'm in the Facebook group where they have all these really great ideas. So I'm excited to hear, and I hope that the remainder of the bag and the concoctions you come up with are really good, Marianne.
Just to be fair, I did enjoy the matcha. So if anyone is
Okay.
like, whose side should I agree with? The matcha was good and I
Yeah.
liked it. It's the coffee one that I'm struggling with, and maybe it's just because I really like regular, coffee. I just like
Mm-hmm.
coffee. So I'm having trouble a little bit with the earthiness of it, but it's fine. I'll give it a try. So yeah, you've inspired me for sure.
Yay! How about for you? What's your wellness win?
I think I kind of used some of the things we talked about last episode, about like challenging your thoughts and like, is this true? So I've been just a little bit stressed, and overwhelmed lately. A lot is going on, a lot that I need to get done. And like there was one day that I was like really stressed and thinking about all the things I had to do before the end of the day. And I was like, I don't have enough time. Like I just, and it was like, how you can spiral. Like as soon as you start to freak out, like you start to spiral. And then I like stopped myself and I was like, wait, let me think about this. Let me challenge this thought, challenge this emotion. Like, do I really not have enough time to get all the things that I need to get done? Like, let me think about them one by one, and as I thought about it, I was like, yeah, like there's a lot, sure, but I can get it done. Like, I do have enough time. I can get done what I need to do and it's going to be okay. So just kind of like pausing that, potential freak out, and thinking, is this really true? And I did have enough time and I got what I needed to get done by the end of the day and didn't end up having to like stay up half the night or anything,
Good.
so a lot of the times I just feel like we psych ourselves out, and we make things perhaps worse than they are just by thinking it's going to be horrible or I don't have enough time. So that idea of challenging the thought, questioning it, is it true, really did work for me in that moment. That was a day last week.
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh, that's great, Marianne. I'm so happy to hear that.
Thank you. I'll need that more in the coming weeks as we have been starting this semester, and like I was just telling you, it's a bit overwhelming. But I'll just continue using that,
Yeah.
and like just the one. This is probably part of today's discussion, but just like one thing at a time. Like you can only do one thing at a time. Like focus on what you need to do now, not all of the 27 things you need to do, because then you don't get anything done besides freaking out. So it's just like a step by step kind of thing. But yeah. So I feel good about that win.
Yeah, I love that win for you and for anybody who can resonate with that. It's a practice. This is something that you just do all the time. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I never have to do this again. It's something you do a lot. That's great. You deserve that.
Thank you. All right. So speaking of being overwhelmed and stuff, a lot of us...
Fun stuff.
Yeah. A lot of us play so many different roles, right, in our lives. And sometimes it's hard to juggle all of them or to, know how much time and energy should I dedicate to each one of these roles. And we might not even realize until you start naming them, like what all those roles are. You know what I mean? Like it's more than just maybe what you would think: partner, mom, employee. Like there's so many more than perhaps those like basic ones that we think about that require our time and energy and effort. And we can get lost in the shuffle and lose our ability to take care of ourselves if we're so focused on meeting the expectations of these other roles.
Yeah it's hard. I feel like if we like have the opportunity to sit down and think about it or even like write it down, it's kind of overwhelming. It's like, wow, I have this much on my plate. If you just think about what you do in an average day or an average week or an average month, and even seasonally, because sometimes our roles are really present in one season, but they're not as present in another season. But it's still very impactful, and it may require us to change our schedule for the other roles that we're doing when we have that one role active,
Right.
So it's a lot. I'm excited about this topic. I say excited, and I'm probably going to feel convicted too. So we'll see how long I say excited for.
I wonder what you're going to be convicted to do. Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I like I was saying, okay, so for me personally, what are some of the roles that I play? Okay, so wife is a big one, but if you want to talk family, wife, but also daughter and sister, right? All of those, forget about extended family, just loved one to all these people, right? That's very important to me. But then there's the role of being a good employee, right? There's the role of being a good servant in my church, volunteer for a lot of organizations. Don't forget that I'm a child of God. That's a very important role for me, and then the one that I was kind of alluding to, like, I'm just a human being in need of care. Like, we can't eliminate that from this equation. Otherwise, we won't ever prioritize it, right? We won't ever allot it the time and the energy that it needs. So, like, that's a lot just right there. Forget about, again, anything else that I want to do. Podcaster, right? So that's a role that I'm playing that requires some time and energy and, whatever. So there could be so many more. And it just really is hard to figure out what needs to be on top, how much percentage of my time, because sorry, I'm a math teacher, right? How much percent am I going to give to this versus this versus this versus this? And we'll feel like we'll run out very quickly, if I'm allotting it that way. So yeah, what do you think? Like, what are we supposed to do about this?
Oh, girl, it's a lot. When I know, I will let you know. But some things that come to mind for sure is, I think one thing that makes it difficult in terms of managing priorities is that some of our roles or our priorities are actually very layered. So for me, for example, one of my roles is an entrepreneur, right? I own my own business. I'm a holistic life coach. But like as an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, I'm coaching, but then I'm also an admin. There's a lot of admin stuff I have to do. I have bookkeeping that I need to do, right? Quarterly taxes. That's a thing I need to pay and think about. I'm also a social media manager. I have to advertise there. I also do marketing. I have a website. I have my blog. I have all of this. So yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but all of what it means to be an entrepreneur is multiple things, and based on what is important for the needs at the time will determine the amount of money or the amount of time or the amount of energy I spend on that thing. And it's interesting because I forgot what episode I talked about this, but there's an episode where I talked about how I like revamped my schedule. And before it was like very like work centric, and now it's very like spiritual health, mental health, and physical health centric. And then whatever free time I have, once I put those things into place, that's when I put like the business stuff. That's when I put the social stuff. And thinking about things from that way. And I don't know. It just really stuck with me because I'm like, wow, now my schedule is more representative of who I am. My job is really important to me. I love what I do, but it's also really important that I am a child of God, right? The Bible talks about how that's actually the most important identity that we have. Before we are family members, before we are friends, before we are employees, we're children of God. That's the most important identity that we have. And so if that's the most important identity I have, then how can I make sure that is reflected in everything that I do, in my finances, in my time, in my relationships, in how I speak to people and treat people. And it can get overwhelming because we realize that it's so much. It's so like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but that actually means 5 million things, which now that means I'm really tired until like 10 p.m. So it's a lot. I don't know if I have a for sure answer yet. There's some things that I do that are helpful, but it is a lot. So this is a validation moment. If you're listening and you're like, how do I manage it? It's a lot. I don't believe that balance is something that's like actually possible. I I'd be curious to hear if you think it's possible. I don't really think balance is possible. I think you just choose what is a priority in that season, in that
Mm.
moment, and then you do that. And then you practice boundaries, you practice advocacy, you practice like verbalizing your needs to others so they understand that they're not forgotten about, but that right now you have another priority, you know? So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm interested to know what you mean by balance doesn't exist. Do you mean a literal 50-50 balance? Like, I'm exactly the same amount of time with work and family, for example, spirituality and work or something, you know what I mean? Like, if that's what you mean, I agree with you. There's probably
Mm-hmm.
no way, like, if you think about a balance being even 50-50, I guess I'd have to say I probably agree with that. Is that,
Mm-hmm.
or can you elaborate on what you mean by there's no such thing
Yeah.
as balance?
Huh. I didn't think about it in so many definitions. So thank you for expanding my curiosity on that. So definitely that I agree with. Yeah, like you can't just do like 50 here, 50 there, like
Hmm.
all of that. But I think more in terms of all of your priorities or every role you have will be attended to always. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are like, balance is key. You always do like in your day, make sure you do a little bit of this, right? And that's how they identify balance to be in their
Okay.
lives. The reason why I don't think that's super possible is just because, well, and maybe you're somebody that doesn't have as many roles, or maybe you're somebody that has a different capacity. That's cool. But for a lot of people who have many roles, who live on earth, who have bills to pay, it's difficult to say that you're going to tune in to everything every single day.
Yeah.
It's difficult to say that you're going to give 100% to all of those different things every single day. And instead, it's like, okay, right now my capacity says that I can only prioritize 3 or 4 things. So these are the 3 or 4 things I'm going to prioritize today. If I have extra time, then I'll do these other 2 things, but I don't know if that's like a for sure thing. I know I definitely can't get to this one thing and it affects my friend. So I'm going to tell her ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
another day, it could be something totally different. So that's what I mean by balance.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Yeah. Like, even just thinking of something like rest, which we've talked a lot
Mm,
about, sometimes you can't build rest into every single day. Yes, that's
mhm,
ideal, right? But sometimes you can't. Like, some days are going to be a lot more rest, like to make up for it, perhaps, because that's what you need. And some days there's going to be less rest. Some days will be more for your, personal relationships, and some days will be more for your work. So, yeah,
mhm,
I totally see that. So, you know what I was thinking about when I was thinking about priorities? Like,
mm,
I think it's probably almost easy to list them, because it's very like ideal, theoretical, oh,
mm,
what are my priorities? Like, what should I be saying? God is my priority number one. My family is my priority number two. My health is my priority, and my life's purpose, if that's my work or whatever it is. Like, I think it's
mm.
maybe easy to say those things, but I feel like saying it is completely meaningless. I feel like unfortunately, to know, I think it's a matter of like maybe almost if we put this on a side by side list. So go ahead and list what you would like, your top priorities to be versus
Mhm,
do an inventory of how do you actually spend your time,
mhm,
and list all of the ways that you spend your time, like the most chunk of your time. And are those going to be aligned? I feel like
mhm,
most likely not. So I
mhm.
think that we show our priorities, we don't get to just like name them, right? So
Yeah.
we show them by what we're doing. And if those two lists are not aligned, if you're dissatisfied with the way that you're spending your time compared to what you would like to be your priorities, then that's when, like you did, something's got to shift, in your
Mhm,
schedule. You got to figure out a way to make them line up. And I have one suggestion,
mm.
maybe more than one, but just I'll let you if you have anything to respond to that, or what do you think? Yeah.
Huh. I definitely am excited to hear your suggestion. What I was thinking about was the episode that we did with Dr. Olele about the dimensions of
Mm,
wellness. And I think that's really what determines what's a priority. What area of your wellness is the most efficient and you need to do something, but also which area of wellness gives you the most fulfillment or the most life or the most energy so that you can do the things you need to do. I think it's a combination of both. As
mm,
Christians, And this sounds good, but do we actually do it? That's a really great question. But as Christians, our spiritual wellness should be the most important wellness, right? Because that's our relationship with God and the word and worshiping and praying and everything, which is supposed to give us the fuel and everything that we need for our life, because it's the most important aspect of our identity. However, how does that translate into, what our actual schedule looks like? How does that translate into how we are budgeting and managing our finances? It could be a different thing, and it impacts all the other areas of our wellness. Because now if I'm spending time my spiritual wellness, and that means that maybe I'm going to be late to my job, so that impacts my vocational wellness or something like that, which is another reason why managing priorities is really hard, because it impacts different areas of your life, different priorities. It impacts people, and you don't want to hurt people, so
yeah,
I think that's really real. Tell us a tip, help us.
Well, I mean, I don't want to like overblow the importance, because honestly, it's simple. It's just a matter of like doing it, So a couple of things. Okay, so this idea of like, if you look at your to-do list, or you look at your schedule, like you said, like we need to be a little bit more ruthless. And I heard this. I wish I could remember now where I got this from, but this idea of it was actually it was on Instagram. It was the dietitian that I used to see her practice. Yeah, they posted this. So this idea that the 4 Ds of your to-do list, okay, like go through your to-do list and you decide each thing, okay, either like, yes, you got to do it. That's the first D. Like, okay, you got to pay your bill, you got to go to the doctor, like whatever is like a must, just do it. Okay, the second D is delegate. Is this something that needs to get done? Great. But do you have to do it? Like maybe you can have somebody else do it. So if you could delegate. Especially this is good for work. If you have a partner or anybody else in your household, like part of the household duties, delegate them, pass them off, let someone else do it. The third one is defer. So like, yes, this is something that needs to get done, but it doesn't need to get done right now. So I can, yes, it's important, but not at the right immediate moment. Like that's prioritizing, right? This is not a priority. And then the last one, this is what I need to find on my to-do list, is ditch. Like, do I actually need to do this? Is this important? No. Like, does it align with my top few priorities? If the answer is no, then you need to just ditch it. This is where I think we can give ourselves more time, more energy, more space to fill our life with the things that are actually more important for us. So I thought that was good. Like if you can make a weekly list, and then go through it maybe at the beginning of the week and think about those 4 Ds. I'll just say them again: do, delegate, defer, or ditch. Right? Then maybe you can free up a little bit of time and emotional energy, mental energy.
I love that. I think what's really powerful about that is, one, you're like actually writing it out, or you're like verbalizing it, whatever, which makes it more real. When things just live in our head, it seems more aggravating or more stressful than it may actually be. So getting it out is like, oh, actually, this is more doable. And two, you're actually concretely seeing how many things you have. So if you have so much in the do, it's like, oh, okay, maybe there's something that I'm thinking is a do, but actually it's a defer, or actually it's a delegate. Because something that I experience, yes, like as a coach, but also just with my friends in conversations that we have, is it's difficult to figure out what's most important, right? Sometimes everything feels really important, especially if you're somebody that deals with anxiety, or if you're an overachiever. Everything feels really important all the time. But in reality, a lot of things aren't as important and can be lower on the priority list. So it's like, okay, what and why? What is making me feel like this is something I have to do? And where is the pressure coming from? And why is this so important? Why is it in the do? Is there something I'm not understanding about the priority? Is there a pressure that I'm feeling from somebody to do this when it actually doesn't have to be done this way? So taking the opportunity to unpack and question why you have those things in that category could be really helpful, because you may have to move some stuff around, which could alleviate your stress and open up your capacity a bit more. But I really love that. That is such a great strategy.
Yeah. I like tangible like things I can write down and do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that one a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, it's hard to know what's most important. And I think one of the things that makes that hard is we tend to feel forced to focus on the things that have like tangible, immediate impact.
Mm, mm,
So again, a very obvious one is okay, work. Like if I work less, I will make less money.
mm,
That's very tangible. I need to make money. I need to pay my bills, versus like the things that if we neglect them, we don't realize the immediate impact. Our spiritual health is a big one like that.
mm-hmm.
So it's hard because yeah, there are things that you're like, no, I can't ignore this because it's going to have an immediate impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. And
That's real.
I don't know what the solution to that is either, besides just constantly reminding ourselves, like you said, that everything stems from my health, all of my health, right? My
Mm-hmm.
holistic health. Like I can do nothing good. We talked about this since episode 1 about self-care. Like I can't do anything, I can't put anything good into the world, I can't be my best self if I'm not taking care of me. And that includes my spiritual health, my physical
Mm-hmm.
health, my emotional health. And those are very much worth the time, the investment, the prioritization for sure. So it's
Mm.
just something that we have to keep reminding ourselves of, perhaps with some affirmations.
Yeah,
Maybe.
ooh.
Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah.
We love some affirmations here. That's real. I think what could help is it just disappeared. Come back. Well, while it's coming back, another thing that I was thinking about while you were talking is I think also this is difficult for people who are people pleasers, recovering people pleasers. So I'm like saying this, declaring this about myself, is that sometimes there's things in my do that actually could be in the delegate, or sometimes there's things in my do that actually could be ditch, because I'm like, Rachel, you have to be the person to do this because who else is going to get it done? And a lot of the times I actually can just ask somebody to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be a burden, or I don't want to add to the stress of somebody else. So I'm like, no, let me just take it on. And then I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm feeling burdened and I'm like pissed off and stressed and I hate everything all the time. So I was thinking a lot about people who are like people pleasers. We really struggle with everything seems like a do, but in reality, it's not actually a do. Hopefully that thought will come back, but that was the one thing that I was thinking about.
So how do we recover from people pleasery?
That is so funny. People pleasery. It's funny. I met with a client today and we literally were talking about this. So there's no like formula or equation. And another thing I'll say about people pleasing is you don't just like wake up and stop people pleasing for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people on social media tend to say like, oh yeah, this is how you could stop doing this bad thing, and then you never have to deal with it again. Sorry, that typically is not the case. For people pleasing, what is really helpful is to take a moment to stop and say, okay, in this moment I'm feeling tempted to people please, right? For us people pleasers, or for someone who's anxious, there's like a radar that we have. There's something internally that goes off that we know is from like a place of people pleasing, right? So when that radar goes off, then it's like, okay, what is it in this moment that is making me feel like I have to people please? Is there pressure coming from somebody? Do I feel threatened by something? Is there something that's dangerous? Is there a consequence that I will have to deal with if I don't people please? Am I fearing something? Right? Am I fearing that they're going to be disappointed? Am I fearing that they're going to talk behind my back? Whatever it is. And then actually break that down and say, okay, since I want to people please in this moment because I don't want to be a burden on somebody, then say, okay, am I actually a burden on somebody? Kind of like with the capture the thoughts, what is the evidence that says that you will be a burden on somebody, and what is the evidence that says that you will not be a burden on somebody? And if there's something you can do to make it less of a burden, because let's say the evidence says yes, this will be a burden, then it's like, okay, what can I do to make it less of a burden? Maybe instead of just giving them 100% of the work to do, my business partner, I give them 50% and then I do 50%, but at least I'm not doing 100% all on my own. And then continuing to remind yourself that. And then another part of it too that we don't really recognize with people pleasing is we have this fear that the worst case scenario is going to happen. 99% of the time, we can actually deal with the worst case scenario. It seems really scary in our brain, but in actuality, if that worst case scenario would happen, it would still suck, but we can actually manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we remind ourselves that we're able to manage difficult situations, we're able to manage the worst case scenario, and we will still be fine, we'll still be healthy, our marriage is still intact, God still loves me, all of that, then we're more likely to feel empowered and confident. And then that helps us to not people please as much. It helps us to advocate, and it helps us to say, hey, I actually would love to say yes to this, but I don't have the capacity for it. Let's talk in another month, and maybe I can increase my volunteer hours. Right? So those things can be really helpful in analyzing, okay, where's the people pleasing coming from? What's the pressure, right? If you're a child of immigrants, if you're a person of color, if you are a Christian, people pleasing is emphasized a lot in those different populations. It's just something that is just really common. And so analyzing where it's coming from, and then figuring out, okay, is this actually true or not? And then what can I do about it? And then you just keep doing that about everything all the time, and analyzing how it's impacting you. And then when you're done with all of that, and you advocate for yourself and you decide to not people please, then you sit with yourself and you say, okay, how was that for me? Does that person actually hate me? Was I able to manage that difficult conversation? Do they think less of me? Do they think that I suck at life? Whatever it is. And usually it turns out that everything is fine. Sometimes it turns out that, oh, actually this didn't go well, and I actually realized that this person only wanted to be around me for certain reasons, or, oh, they only, this organization only wanted me when I could overwork myself. And that can be frustrating to deal with. But you can trust yourself to deal with frustrating things, and you don't have to say yes in order to avoid thinking about that. You don't want to say yes to things just to hope that everything will be fine. You want to say yes from a place of confidence and say, yes, I can execute this really well. So that's my TED Talk. Thanks for coming.
So I'm glad you mentioned Christians specifically, because I was thinking, and this is probably a whole other topic, but how do we distinguish between that gut feeling of I need to do this because I'm a people pleaser, or I need to do this because I need to share God's love, because I need to be selfless like Christ, because I need to be the hands and feet of Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, and I need to give and love unconditionally, just like, God does. So I think that's a really difficult distinction to make.
Yep.
I honestly wouldn't know where to begin to make that distinction. What do you think?
Yeah, girl. Whoo! Welcome to the hard parts of being a Christian. So I have an unpopular opinion. Don't get mad at me, Marianne, or people in the comments. But I don't think the goal is for us to be selfless. I think the goal is for us to be unselfish. So selfless means that we don't think about ourselves, or we think about ourselves less in a way that's significantly lower, that could potentially be unhealthy. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is being selfish, which we are only thinking about ourselves to the point where it's actually harming somebody else. The goal as humans, but especially as Christians, is to be unselfish, which is being in the middle. That means that we are remembering ourselves, that we are like, yes, I'm a child of God. Therefore, I have value, and I am worth, these nice things that are happening. And because I am a child of God, I understand that a lot of the reason why I'm on this earth is to love people, is to spread the love and light of Jesus wherever I am. And that means that I carry the burdens of my friends. That means that I give to people who are in need, and I don't judge them, or I don't ask questions. That means that I'm very, very, very giving, because our God is such a giving God. We give to others, right? And so I think what can be helpful is asking ourselves, okay, like, let's say you're thinking about a volunteer opportunity. I don't know why that keeps coming up for me. I think because as kind-hearted Christians, we're like, let's volunteer all the time, which is beautiful. But sometimes we do it a little bit too much, or sometimes it comes from an unhealthy place. And so thinking about it and being like, okay, God, I want to love you. I want to love your people very well. I want to make sure that I am honoring the body and the mind that you have given me. And I want to make sure that I am being in that space where I am meeting the needs of people, and I'm spreading your love and everything like that. I don't know if I have the capacity for this. Change my capacity if this is something that you want me to do. change my schedule if this is something you want me to do. Girl, the number of times that I've had a very busy day scheduled and God just cleared my schedule because I was like, God, this is too much for me. Please clear my schedule or change my capacity. The number of times he has literally cleared my schedule, or he literally will change my capacity. Even if I don't have mushroom coffee, I still have the capacity to do it. And so I think a big part of it is prayer and seeking the Lord and being like, God, what is it that you want me to do in this moment? And then God will honor our ask. It doesn't mean that we always get what we want, but what it means is that he's happy that we are seeking him and he's going to show up. So he's going to be like, okay, you're going to get a message from your friend that's going to talk about boundaries, or you're going to have a conversation with your parent about how great it is to give to people. And there's this like, oh, I just smacked my table, but there's this like, Holy Spirit conviction, this like oomph that happens where you're like, here's something and you're like, oh yeah, that was for me. Like, oh yeah, that was from God. He's definitely using this person or this song or this circumstance to talk to me about something. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I say that as somebody that is still learning how to do that well. And remembering that God knows the intentions of our hearts. So even if we say no to something that God wanted us to say yes to, he's not mad at us forever. He knows the intention of our heart was to seek him and was to do it well. And maybe we misunderstood this time around. And so that means it's more conversation between God and I. That means it's more edification that way. But girl, that's a good question. That's all I got. I hope that's helpful because I'm learning.
I think it is helpful. So the big thing I'm getting from that is two things. The balance. I know you don't like the word balance, but the balance between the two ends of the spectrum of selfless and selfish. So yeah, I like that. And then also the seeking guidance, right? How do I know if this is something God is calling me to do, to serve him and to glorify him, or if it's, again, just this innate people pleasing that I need to kind of unlearn. And then with that seeking guidance comes something that I know I need to do better. And I've heard this so many times that, like, before you just agree to things, pause. Like, just take a pause, give yourself a chance to think about, I think we talked about this in one of the hurry episodes, like, give yourself a chance to think about the ramifications of agreeing to this, whatever it is, of putting this other thing on your plate. And in that pause, be requesting guidance, be praying for, hey, God, tell me, is this really what you want me to do? Or, is this something that I can say, politely, no, I'm not able to do this right now. So yeah, I like that. The seeking the guidance and giving ourselves a chance to hear it, to feel it, to experience it by taking a pause. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, let me get back to you about that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I needed to hear that. That might be my takeaway. It's to pause more. Because I also, especially if it's like something I'm excited about, I'm like, I'm excited. Yes, I want to do this, But if I actually were to pause, there's a chance that in that pause, I would look at my schedule and be like, oh, actually, I can't make it this week. Maybe it's next week. If I were to pause, it would potentially lead to an answer that I don't want it to be. But I know that it's actually the healthiest or the best in that, for that situation. But that's good.
Yeah.
Pausing more.
Definitely something that I need to do.
You and me, girl. Yeah. We will.
So this might be shifting gears a little bit, but when I was thinking about this idea of, priorities, it's so easy for us to say, I don't have time for that, or I don't have time for this. I don't have time, like, oh, why don't you, take some time to relax. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Like, blah, blah. We say it so many times. Or, I've always wanted to go back to school, but I don't have time. I've always wanted to do this, but I don't have time. So I'm going to actually pull from episode 17, I think it was, when we had Mark. And he basically called that, and shot that excuse down. Like, you cannot say, I don't have time. Like, we make time for what is important to us, and even though that often means saying no to something so you could say yes to what is more important to you. But basically, I think if we reframe that phrase, I don't have time, and we say, that's not a priority for me right now. Like, that to me is so much more empowering, because when you say, I don't have time for that, it feels like you have no control over what you're doing with your time, right? Like you're just trying to manage
Wow.
things that are being thrown at you, versus when you say that's not a priority for me right now, that's me making a deliberate choice, right? That this is not how I need to spend this time right now, right? So it's just so much more empowering that you can choose, you decide what's a priority for you, right? And by using that phrase, you're not saying, no, things are out of control and I don't have time. You're saying, this is just not what I'm choosing to prioritize right now. And who can, I mean, nobody should argue with that. Probably people will, but they shouldn't argue with that. We need to respect each other's, opinions and boundaries, and that you're doing what's best for yourself.
Oh, that is so good. I kind of want to memorize that phrase. And I think you're right. I think people ideally wouldn't be upset about it, but I can definitely see people being like, "You're telling me that this is not a priority?" It's like, yeah, I'm telling you. And like, I think a big part of this too is letting people deal with the disappointment, the upset, whatever about the decision that you make, and just let them have that emotion. And that's fine. You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to sign off on the fact that you need to decrease your volunteering hours. It's just, that's just like what it is. And you're hoping that they will understand. And I think another reason why I love that phrase, that's not a priority for me right now, is because it's the most accurate, because what it says is there's a potential in the future that this could change. So we're not writing it off, especially for something like going back to school. A ton of people have that desire. But if they were to think, oh, that's not a priority for me right now, versus I don't have time for that, right? I don't have time for that has more of like a finality connotation to it. It has like an end. You must decide now forever and you can never change your mind. Versus that's not a priority for me right now. That allows you to say, in this moment where all of these roles in my life are what they are, where my capacity is what it is, this is not something I'm able to do. But my capacity might change. My roles might change. You have no idea. I may, win a scholarship and I will all of a sudden be able to like afford this thing and be able to still be a great spouse, all of the other roles that we have. So it leaves a room for possibility for things to change, which we need hope, y'all. We need hope. This podcast is going in a million different directions, but because I was about to be like, we need hope and this is why hope is important. We'll talk about hope another time, but
but it's true that things do come around. Like just this beginning of this semester, I have worked with so many students coming back to school 20, 30 years later, and the thing is, they're almost apologetic, like they feel guilty that they're only coming back to school now. Oh, I've been meaning to do this forever. And you know what I've been telling them? Timing is everything. That it wasn't the right time for you before. Now is the right time for you. And if they had been telling themselves all along, this is not a priority for me right now, that's fine. Now it's a priority. So good for you. You're making it a priority now. Who cares how many years it is later? But I think, I like that. It opens the door, it keeps the door open that, one day maybe you will volunteer more, or, maybe I will want to start, super weightlifting and make it like a really important thing, as opposed to just, a side thing that I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like there's always a possibility that things change for you. Our roles are constantly changing, like you said, seasonally, different times of our lives. So we just, I think what I need to do and what I would recommend is we just need to take an inventory. What is it that you would like to be a priority? How are you actually living your life? What needs to be ditched, delegated, deferred, whatever, so that they can line up, right? And don't feel like just because you're not prioritizing something now, you can't prioritize it later, right? Like things like, for some of our younger folks who are into the dating scene and the dating episode, maybe dating is not a priority for you right now. That's okay. Like, that doesn't mean you're never going to make dating a priority, finding a partner a priority. It doesn't have to be a priority now. Wait till it's the right time for you. Things like that. I do feel like it gives us hope. It gives us like a little bit more peace, like, okay, it's a priority for them, but not for me, because we're constantly, unfortunately, comparing ourselves, right, to other people. So that's their priority. It's not mine. I have other priorities, and that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That was so good. Thanks, Marianne. I don't have a follow up to that. I'm just like, wow, you can change your mind. How empowering is it to know? Now I do have something to say. How empowering is it to know that we can change our
Mm-hmm.
mind? You know, and it doesn't mean that we're indecisive. It just means that we allow for God to do what He does in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and things will change. And therefore, we can change our mind. Therefore, we can start something. We can end something. We can pause something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so empowering. Thanks,
Yeah,
Marianne.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you for this
Did you mention?
conversation. Yeah.
Did you mention your takeaway?
Oh geez. Yeah. It's just
I think the whole
yeah, the whole
episode
thing.
is a
But just
takeaway.
yeah, that like do the inventory, compare, right? What do you
Yeah,
want? What are you actually doing? What needs to change? You know, and I
yeah,
really am gonna use those 4Ds, do, delegate, defer, ditch for sure. I
yeah,
would really like to. So
yeah. I love that. And I think for me, the takeaway is the really just thinking about that statement of like, this is not a priority for me right
mhm.
now. And yeah, just thinking about the different roles in that inventory. Something that is really helpful is doing that with a friend or someone that you trust. And so if you are interested in connecting with us, feel free to. We would love to talk to you about these things and walk through
Mhm.
this journey with you. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at Real with Rachel Ann. If you want to reach out to Marianne, she's on Instagram at Wabasaba. We are also on Instagram, our podcast together as a unit at Connected Wellness Podcast. So hit us up there. Let us know how we can support you in this journey of understanding your roles and your priorities, and tell us what your inventory looks
Mhm.
like, right? Is your do list too long and you need help? So let us know. We're also on Facebook at Connected Wellness Podcast. If email is more your thing, email us, connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, did I hit all the links? Am I missing a
I
link?
think you got them all. Yeah.
Awesome. We got all the links. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to
Thank
Marianne.
you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. Until then, be well.